Welcome back, Path Plus Peddlers, to another episode of PLP Talks, where we talk to interesting and fascinating people in the bike industry, bike travel industry. And today we've got a super special guest for you guys today, Sarah Swallow. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about routes. We actually got a chance to ride one of the routes that you discovered out in one of our favorite parts of Oregon. What's kind of your methodology, or what tools do you use in route planning? Do you just kind of pick a spot and scour maps, or is there a theme, or what's your thinking behind route building?
I usually start by just like being inspired by a place, whether it's something that someone's mentioned to me or a place that I've kind of like seen a glimpse of before. And in the case of that Oregon route, I saw kind of like that section on the Oregon Outback that goes through Prineville and that small town after Prineville. That was my favorite section. And so I knew I wanted to eventually go back there and do something there. And I had friends in town in Portland, and the weather was bad. And I'm like, okay, let's do something in Central Oregon where it's dry and a little warmer. And so when I start, like after I know of a place that I want to ride, I start with like a paper map. I have like every state of the DeLorme maps. And so I kind of look at the roads there and see what I can connect with that. And then I take that and start plotting it out on Ride with GPS, and use a lot of Google satellite modes and satellite images to make sure these roads are actually there. And kind of map out. You can really zoom in and see where there's businesses on all those on Google and Ride with GPS, so I can see where we're going to have resupply. And yeah, that's pretty much what it takes.
So how often, like when you plan a route, do you get there and you discover like the way you thought you were going to go through was a dead end and you have to completely readjust on the fly? Does that happen pretty often, or for like
yeah, I mean, it's pretty rare that it works out perfectly, but usually at the point that when I've familiarized myself with the area so much just by doing all that pre-prep work, that generally when that happens, I have an idea of like where the reroute is going to be, or I kind of know that might be a questionable section. And in that Oregon route, there was a section that kind of like took us off the main road for a little bit. Like I had us routed off of the main road and through all these like really terrible goat heads that ended up plaguing us for like the next 12 hours, and we didn't get very far after that. But it was an easy reroute, so it wasn't bad. So.
Yeah. So when you went and actually rode that, like, did you do that over the span of because we rode it for the event, for the Ramble Ride, we rode it in like 3 days. Did you do that in 3 days or less or more?
We did it I think we did it in 5 days.
See, that would have been a perfect distance.
Yeah, we did it in 5 days because we started in like late in the afternoon one day, and we camped on top of off of that paved road near the top. And then we rode all day the next day and camped towards the John Day River Basin.
Well, I don't feel so bad because like during the event we rode it in 3 days, and like I knew that they had based it off of your route. It was like, holy crap! I wonder like how long it took them, because it's like it was a burly ride. Yeah, the last day before that big climb, before dropping back into Prineville, we got some snow. There was a fallen tree, so they couldn't mark the course after the summit. So we were like, can you just tell us how not to get lost?
Right. Yeah, that would be hard to navigate up there in the snow, I would think.
Yeah.
We just had kind of rainy weather when we were there.
Yeah.
But it was still it was still nice. But yeah, 3 days is a big, um, those are big days
Yeah.
on that level. It's like, that's not really touring pace.
I feel a lot better having hearing you say that.
Yeah, definitely. I know. The tat, like we were averaging, I can't remember what we averaged when we did the tat. Like it was like somewhere between 50 and 70 miles per day. And that's just like, I can't even imagine doing that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I slow down.
Yeah.
Fewer miles per day and, lots of time for pictures and breaks and just really enjoying where you're at is like the most important thing to me.
I mean, based on riding that one route, it seems like you've got a really good sense for what makes a epic ride. Is this something that you hope to do in the future? Make more routes for other people, for events, for destinations, or something?
Yeah, that's what I would really like to do. And yeah, I think I have a good sense. This is what I did when I had the my bike shop
Uh-huh.
too in Cincinnati. Was put on gravel rides, kind of like informal gravel rides, and so I kind of have a sense of how difficult to make it, but also how easy to make it, and and like what is enough challenge for most people, and for everybody to have like a worthwhile experience that makes them feel like they've done something and they've overcome something. And yeah, I really like doing that. It's like I'm really interested in that, and I hope to keep doing more of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're at an interesting place in like the bike touring, bike packing / gravel space where, people have the equipment, but they're really looking for places to ride. And people are creating these great routes, but, creating these routes take resources, and no one's really talked about, well, should route creators be compensated? Is it okay to like charge a fee for a GPX route if it's it took like a long time to research? I mean, do you have any ideas or thoughts about that?
I think of the same thing. Like I kind of like question all that, but the way I kind of see it, how it could work out is just being kind of like a travel agent or a consultant for this kind of thing, like giving people the tools and the information that they need based on what kind of experience they're looking for. And I think that there is room for that in this kind of industry. I think people are doing it in like different ways right now,
Right.
but yeah, I think the key is like, okay, if you're gonna like set someone up with a route, then are you gonna pre-ride it? Like, are you gonna charge them for the time to pre-ride it so that you can do that? And I think that that's really where it comes down to, is like those routes have to be tested, because you can't really send someone out in the wild, like just based on a Google satellite image.
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely like a interesting development in the next couple of years, because I feel like there's definitely some people that are going to be known for creating great routes, and it could be something that could be scaled up beyond just like creating a route for friends, but making routes for events, for a tour company that wants to get that's done paved traditionally but wants to get in gravel but doesn't have the expertise. So there's lots of different
Right.
kind of avenues where I think it could go. So
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, because
yeah.
I'm totally.
Well, let's move on to the topic of DK. It's something that Laura and I are considering doing next year if the lottery gods are in our favor. What was the experience for you? Like I listened to the what's the other podcast that interviewed
We
you?
got to hang out.
Yeah, and it sounded like
Yeah.
most of your training was just like touring there.
Yeah.
So what was the experience of the ride? Was it hard? Was it like a piece of cake after having done that tour?
Well, so I have subjected myself to long distance rides in the past, like more than 200 miles, like on the pavement, and I've done like 100-mile rides. So I think a little bit more familiar with the pain that I was expecting.
Right.
And so I knew I didn't want to train by just riding like 100-mile gravel rides, like, once a week. Like, I didn't really want to do that. And I had just come from the Baja Divide. And so I was kind of ramping back up. I think I went on 100-mile ride by myself before that bike tour. And then we did like, I went down to Arizona with some people and we did some like big rides. Like we did a 130-mile ride up the backside of Mount Lemmon.
Right.
And then we did some other like just gravel rides on cross bikes. And then in May, I flew to Durango, and then we started here to ride to Emporia. The first week of that bike tour was one of the hardest bike tours I've ever been on, just because we hit like snow in the first mountain pass, and then it was a lot of sand in the next mountain pass, which we all expected, but
Right.
it was just, really time consuming and a lot of hiking. And then by the time like we got into like the Front Range of Colorado and Kansas, and it started flattening out, it was like tilted the nose of my saddle down a little bit more, and had my aero bars and kind of settled into just a nice consistent pace. The actual Dirty Kansas event, like Benedict really like psyched me up before. He's like, you gotta like try hard, like, you gotta like try and do decently, like you gotta try to do well. And so I kind of went into it thinking like, okay, I'm gonna push harder than my normal touring pace, and I'm just gonna try to hang with these people as long as I can. And so like the first 50 miles was like 2 hours. Like, it was crazy. It was so fast.
Dang.
And then I like kind of crashed after that. Not crashed, but like bonked a little bit and had to recover. And so mile 100, by the time I got to mile 100, I was feeling like terrible.
Right.
And but then after that, I kind of like, I just had a whole bunch of food and lots of like beverages. And
When you do an event like that, what do you eat? Are you like a real food kind of person, or do you take your nutrition in like gels or stuff?
Well, I'm not very good at any of my nutrition. So I kind of, at the time, I was like really into real food. So I was eating a lot of like cinnamon raisin toast with coconut oil and avocado on top. So
Nice.
like I pretty much ate that for breakfast, and at all of the break points, my mom had like a sandwich made up for me, and then I drank coconut water. Didn't feel like I could eat that much like on the bike. Like my stomach was all turned up, and I could drink, but I just wasn't really eating much. But I carried like little gel, like Cliff Bars. I'm like addicted to coffee, so I need a lot of caffeine. So I always carry like a caffeinated version of those jelly things in case of an emergency. But
Nice.
yeah, real food. I think I had a hot dog at mile 100, maybe stuff
So
like that.
so it sounds like your family was your crew?
Yeah, my dad did the Dirty Kansas. He did the 100-miler, and
Okay.
he's actually trying to do the 200-miler this year. He's
Oh, dang.
like doing like trying to do 2 or 3 200-mile races this year. Which
Oh,
is
wow.
awesome. Yeah. But yeah, so he was racing, and then my mom was there, and she was waiting at the rest stops for both of us.
Yeah.
And I even switched shoes after the first 50 miles, because my shoes from the bike tour had kind of like imploded. And so I put on some like older shoes at mile 50. It was comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice to have some support. I was going into it thinking I would have no support, and I'm really glad that I did, because it was like so encouraging to have someone like cheering for you when you come and come into the rest stops, and having someone just like hand you food and stuff, because you're just like so discombobulated that you're like, I can't even feed myself.
Yeah, it's
But
something we're gonna have to navigate if we actually get in. Is like, what are we gonna do for a crew and all that? But we'll see.
I think my mom had fun. You know, she made friends, and the Yonder Journal guys were there, and so she got to witness a lot of like weird things from them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's got some funny stories about that. Um, but yeah, so I think it was fun for her.
Cool. So let's
It's a
talk.
cool vibe in Imperial.
Yeah, that's what I've that's definitely one of the reasons why we want to go check it out firsthand. Is like it seems like the community's really embraced it, like the neighboring areas. I know that they give preference to like locals riding the event, so I'm really stoked about that like community building aspect of Dirty Kansas. So.
Right, right. 'Cause we got there like a few days ahead of time, and we watched the town come alive
Oh,
as
cool.
cyclists were arriving, and that was really fun to witness because, you know, it's a really slow paced kind of town.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about. Let's go behind the hashtag. Looking at everyone's social feed. Yours, ours. We have to project like a certain kind of image of like living the dream. But Laura and I know, like we were on the road for about 3 years, so we know it's ups and downs. Like, what
Yeah.
are some of the kind of the downsides of like the nomadic life or semi-nomadic life that you've experienced?
Um,
If
you
any.
know,
You
yeah.
can.
So many. It's not as great as it appears on Instagram. um, Yeah, I think the whole thing behind like living the dream is for me, I see what I'm doing. I feel more free than how I felt when I owned a bike shop. And but at the same time, my life is like less stable. So it's always changing, and I don't get to see my friends and family as much, or like relationships change, and so yeah, it's really, it can be hard, but at the same time incredibly rewarding too. I'm not tied down. Not to say that I will never be tied down again, but there's an element that I feel like I'm exploring what I want to explore right now in my life, and I have the freedom to do that, whereas I didn't have that freedom before, and I like that a lot too. And
What's probably the most stressful thing for you, like in this lifestyle?
um, it kind of depends. Like this summer, it was like money and financially and stuff. And, I was like payments on my van, and I didn't need making payments on a van that I had purchased like when I was making a lot more money. And so I sold the van. The van is tied with lots of memories too. Um, but now, like the sponsorship comes through and like financials work out, and I don't necessarily have those worries right now. But yeah, and like kind of like I always have to be kind of like focused on, I have to be self-motivated for one, like I have to keep myself busy and like doing stuff and looking forward. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, like I like the planning stages of it, and yeah, I like to be able to get to see these new places and experience these new places. And I am really happy on my bike, and I know that, and I'm more happy than necessarily being cooped up. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of following what makes me happy, and that doesn't necessarily make everybody happy. Like not everybody is happy on the bike, and I think that I've ridden with people where that's been the case, and they've learned that about themselves, and I think that that's the way it goes. It's like, yeah, it might seem incredibly awesome, but you might not actually like it.
Right.
It's kind of hard, you know, like it's
Yeah.
physically hard and then emotionally hard, especially when you're doing it with people that you're really close to. So, yeah, it's not always, you know, pretty pictures and awesome landscapes.
Yeah, I know when we were on the road, we loved it a lot, a ton for the first couple years, but we got emotionally tired, because you're like you said, like you're always having to land the next gig, pitch that next sponsor, and like you can never really do long-term planning because we always have to move and things are always shifting and everything's really dynamic, which is awesome and exciting, but like it's an emotional grindstone sometimes.
Right. It's a hustle, and you don't necessarily feel like you're making very many roots in any place, and that's kind of different. Um, so yeah, it's 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 different. Harder than it looks.
Yeah, and also, yeah, ultimately that for us it was like you were saying, the roots issue. Like we met like a ton of people, but we didn't know anyone very well, and like
Right.
there was that we didn't feel like we had a community. We couldn't plug into something larger than just what was in our immediate surroundings. So that's
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm working on right now is like trying to establish a balance where I have a home base and then I travel from that home base. And so I feel like Durango is a great home base because I'm in close proximity to a lot of great bike touring that I would like to do. Um, and then I can still come back and have this community. But I'm new to this community,
Yeah.
so I am like just making friends and making friends and becoming part of that community is harder, is a hard task too. So
Yeah.
constant. You have to be really adaptable and okay, and patient.
So what's the biggest life lesson you think you've learned with this semi-nomadic lifestyle last couple of years?
Oh, the biggest lesson? I kind of like am just trying to follow my dream, and I think I'm not trying to say no, I can't do that, or no, that's like I shouldn't do that right now. Like I feel like, we only, I mean, well, I'm not really sure about this, but I'm pretty sure we only have one life to live, and I think that we might as well make the most of it. And I think that bike touring is an amazing way to connect with people and land, and that we can really learn a lot about other cultures and just like the world in general from experiencing it on a bicycle, like traveling through on a bicycle. And yeah, I think that pace offers, a unique perspective. And I think that if everybody did it a little bit more, they would like each other more.
Right.
or just like it would be a better place. I mean, I went to Morocco, and Morocco was like the first Muslim country I'd ever been to. And I was just amazed by how diverse that culture is. And it's like there's not only one kind of Muslim person, there's like a million different kinds of Muslim people. And it's like the way we're kind of told in the media is it just makes it seem like it's less of that. So, I just thought that was a really educational experience for myself. I didn't spend too much time there, but I was grateful for the opportunity to just see that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that trip. How long was your tour out there, and what were some interesting sights and interactions you had?
Yeah, it was about a month. I think it was about a month long, and I flew into Barcelona, and we rode around. We got rented city bikes and rode around Barcelona for like 3 days straight in the rain, which
Nice.
was pretty fun. I think I took my bike down an escalator at one point, and but yeah, it was really interesting because during that time, the Catalonia referendum was happening. So there was like a huge protest or rally in the square that we witnessed, and just kind of like picking up on all those people's perspective on what was going on
Right.
was really interesting. And then we went to Ibiza just because my partner wanted to go there because they were there like 20 years ago
A
for
rave?
fun, for raving. Yeah, but we didn't do any raving. I
No
was like,
raving.
I am not going to a rave.
You don't carry glow sticks on your bike?
Yeah, no, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But we were able to like ride. It was pretty rough, pretty hard riding. It was like lots of bluff, and so it's steep and rocky. But we were able to find some really cool beach spots. We ended up at one point just riding to a certain point and then hiding our bikes in the bushes, and then filling our backpacks up with all the contents of our bikes, and then hiking further out to this like remote cove, spending the night there, and then like hiking into town and then back up to our bikes the following day. And that was the highlight of Ibiza. We just eventually worked our way to Ronda, which is another interesting town, but that was just like full of tourists. So what we ended up doing was like planning to get to these places like pretty late at night so that we didn't have to deal with the tourism too much.
Right.
And plus everything's like closed during the day. So it's not very like, you got to really understand the siesta part of their day. It's like they're open for bike tours.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we worked our way down through there's like another set of mountains all the way down to Algeciras. And from Algeciras, we took a bus to this other place where we took a ferry to Tangier, and entered in Tangier. And that was like just, culture shock, total culture shock, just trying to get to the hotel that we were going to stay at, and going through the old Medina was really interesting, and then the markets, and yeah, I was just pretty much just soaking it up for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And wearing all the clothes I could manage to find.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't quite sure. I was picking up on what everybody else was like doing, what all the other women, like I was like, okay, so they're covering their shoulders, but maybe not their heads, or they're covering their legs, but maybe not their shoulders. But I decided that the best thing I could do was probably cover my legs, because I didn't see too many women wearing shorts. So.
Right. Well, it's good. It's great that you're respectful of the local cultures, not just like tromping around there.
I know it. I don't think you would. It's not even very. It's not fun for the person that's. No, I mean, for the like 5 minutes that I was riding in shorts and like a cut-off T-shirt or whatever, I was just like, I need to get at some new clothes and blend in a little bit more, because right now it's sticking out too much. But
let's talk a little bit about this WTF summit that you're planning. Can you tell us a little bit about it, and why you think it's necessary?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm working on this with a lot of other awesome women, and what it is called the WTF Bike Explorer Summit. And essentially what we're planning is an outdoor weekend of rides, clinics, campfires, and storytelling in Whitefish, Montana for women, transgender, femme, and non-binary cyclists. And we just feel like it's long overdue that we get together. And the focus is that all these cyclists are people who use their bicycles to explore, so not necessarily in competition or anything like that. So we're just trying to create a safe space to connect and celebrate one another, and just get the conversation started and say more people can be doing this, and meeting each other and finding people to ride with, um, and just showing the rest of the world that we're out here and we're capable of being represented, I think.
Hmm. What do you think is the biggest challenge for women in bike exploration?
It's easier to do it when you have people to ride with, for
Okay.
one. So, having an opportunity to ride with other people is important. But also, like for us short people, bikes and packing bikes is really hard, and we have less space to fill up, and we're expected to carry, just as much as everybody else that has like a size 58 centimeter or 60 centimeter frame. So the
Right.
thing that I experience the most, like the most difficulty, is just like working with what is available to me, like in terms of these like really small frames that don't have very much frame space, and they don't have very much space between the saddle and the tire to carry bags. So, that kind of thing, because we don't want to have to rely on our partner or our boyfriends or whatever to carry our stuff for us.
Hmm.
I want to be able to do it by ourselves. So that's not the only thing. That's mostly my personal. I was really inspired by the how many women showed up to the Baja Divide.
Hmm.
I think there's about 50 women there, and I rode with like lots of different groups throughout my time down there,
Hmm.
and I rode with like three different women who were on their either first bike tour ever or first like mountain bike tour, and yeah, and they were just killing it, and when it comes to exploration and adventure riding and everything like that, we have the endurance and the mental endurance to be just as good, or if not better, than dudes doing this. So um, I think that there, is a lot of room for growth for women in this sport.
If you had a magic wand, what do you think the industry could do better in terms of getting more women active in bike exploration?
The easiest thing for companies to do would just be incorporate more women doing like badass stuff in their media. I still think that there's a lot of like when I see bike packing stuff like in my feed, it's mostly dudes doing this stuff.
Right.
No, they're not the only ones out there doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the easiest thing, just highlighting, the feats that women are doing out there on the dirt and the camping. And
Like when I feel cynical, I call bike packing bro packing because it tends
yeah,
to to
right,
heavily
right.
skew male in the media. Speaking of that, do you feel like any particular pressure to always represent because you do have like a bit of a stage and a voice to keep women top of mind?
You know, I don't I don't feel a terrible amount of pressure. I mean, the way I look at it is, I just need to lead by example. So I just need to keep doing what I'm doing and sharing my experiences, and be involved with where I can be of use too. So I don't feel a terrible amount of pressure, and I've just been lucky. I have, really good friends that bike tour and are badass women that have just like grown up cycling with. So I just think it's obvious to me that I just take it, for granted that I just know how strong women are and how capable they are. So, yeah, I don't feel a terrible amount of pressure. I mean, I have so many guy friends that I ride with too. So it's like, you know, I'm just going to lead by example. I'll just keep doing stuff and showing that it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do like that I do have a platform to share my experience with the specialized adventure program, and that's been really great.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a good place to end this interview. If people want to keep up with you, you have a new website, or what's the best way to follow your adventures?
On Instagram, Sarah J. Swallow, and my website is www.sarahjswallow.com.
Cool.
So,
All right.
yeah, just Google me and you'll find out what I'm doing.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Sarah, so much for being our guest today. And if you guys like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'm going to put links in the description for all the good things that we talked about, as well as, I don't know, leave comments if you have suggestions for future guests. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Russ. See ya.